Breakfast on Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
You are listening to The Jan Price Show, and today my guest is Academy Award nominated director, writer, producer Jim Stern, and we're talking about his new documentary entitled American Chaos. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. I love this movie. There's lots to talk about in this movie, but before we get into American Chaos, I want to talk a little bit about your career and how you got involved in this crazy business.
I got involved in the business a long time ago, and as I like to say, I got the bug and never got cured. So I did it all the way back in college, and went to New York from there, and worked in the theater for a couple of years, and then kicked around one thing after another, and finally did a show in Chicago, which is where I'm from, a very small show, which was a big hit in Chicago. Took it to New York, and it did not work there at all, and learned an unfortunate lesson about, that things are not necessarily transferable from one city to the other. Did another show in New York, which is a Broadway show, which I thought which got great reviews, and got obliterated soon thereafter by a small little show called Angels in America. And then I felt like I was done. I didn't want to do producing for theater anymore, and my friends convinced me to do one last one, which is a crazy show about where people bang on pots and pans and make a show out of it, and that was Stop, which ended up being one of the biggest hits in the history of the New York stage.
It was.
So from there, I produced a lot of things on stage, and then gravitated, as I always wanted to do, into film. So wrote a script, got that done, then did an IMAX film, which was really a documentary, my first documentary on Michael Jordan. So which did enormously well, and then the one thing led to another. I moved to Los Angeles, and I've done a lot of films and a lot of shows.
I should also mention you're a two-time Tony Award-winning producer, in addition to everything else that you've done. Quite an illustrious career. So, how did you then, from the film you did about Michael Jordan, how did you transition into? Because you have a wonderful, you've co-financed or financed more than 30 films and Broadway shows, but how did you transition into the film industry?
Well, I was very fortunate. I think that it's, I think Woody Allen said, if 90% of life is just showing up, and I kept showing up, and I finally was able to produce The Producers, which won the most Tonys in history, and Hairspray. So. From there, there was a moment in time where, I was doing enormously, hugely well, and when I went to Los Angeles, I decided that I didn't want to simply be a director for hire or even a producer for hire. I wanted to be able to control events as much as I could. So I decided to start my own business, and because I had The Producers and Hairspray right back of me, people backed me to do this, and that became a company called Endgame, which I've run for the last 15 years. And Endgame has provided me with the opportunity to produce many terrific films, such as Looper and I'm Not There, Todd Haynes' movie about Bob Dylan, Side Effects by Steven Soderbergh, and Education, which was nominated for Best Picture. So I've done, probably, 30, 40 films just from Endgame alone, plus all the Broadways. So it's been a tremendous ride, and as I went, I wanted to get back to what I was originally always going to do, which was direct, and so I started to really, to direct a documentary every couple of years, which I've been able to do as well, and I'm very, very pleased. I'm very, very happy. I have carved out a little niche and a career which I only dreamed of doing.
That's always why I love doing what I do, because I love talking to people who love what they do and they're passionate about what they do, and it's always makes it my job a lot easier too. We before we got started, we talked a little bit about this new movie that you produced, The Old Man and the Gun, starring Robert Redford and Jason Segel, and Robert Redford.
Casey Affleck.
I'm sorry, Casey Affleck. Sorry, Sissy Spacek. I was reading something else there. So, and it premiered at Telluride and got some really wonderful reviews. And you said it was also at TIFF at the Toronto Film Festival. How was the reaction at the Toronto Film Festival for The Old Man and the Gun?
The reaction at TIFF was crazy. Just huge standing ovation the night that I was there, which was the premiere at TIFF of the film. The reviews are terrific. It's a film which is about a 75-year-old man who's been in and out of jail his entire life. He has been a bank robber his whole life, and he escaped from jail 16 times. It is a true story. So Redford plays the bank robber, Forrest Tucker. It is directed and written by David Lowery. Casey Affleck is the sheriff who, at first, really wants to hunt him down, and at second has a growing admiration for him. And Sissy Spacek is the woman who falls in love with him. And the film is terrific. It opens in New York and L.A. September 28th from Fox Searchlight, who did Shape of Water last year and Birdman before that, and a million other films that just garnered huge awards. So I think it's very exciting. And Redford's amazing in it. And at 82 years old, he has said that this would be the last film that he acts in. He'll continue to direct and produce, but this is going to be his swan song. He said that if he could go out on a high like this, then that would be the perfect ending for him. So it's certainly the perfect ending for him and the perfect film for us.
That's great. That's great. I find it hard to believe that he may no longer act, but I'm also, the buzz coming from Telluride, and I'm sure also from TIFF, was that there's a lot of little Oscar buzzing around Redford possibly being nominated for Best Actor this year. Wouldn't that be exciting?
Yes.
That would be a nice high to
would,
your career on, for sure. And you just you also are in post-production with a brand new movie called Come Sunday.
Now, Come Sunday was already done for Netflix, and so that's Chiwetel Ejiofor and Martin Sheen and Jason Segel, and it concerns an evangelist who is the heir apparent to Oral Roberts, an African-American guy named Carlton Pearson, and he comes to realize in his own mind that there is no such thing as hell, and he's brought up on heresy charges, the only heresy trial of the 20th century. It's a really interesting film, and it's you can watch it on Netflix anytime. That's the one beautiful thing about Netflix, is that while it's already been out, it's still brand new in its own way. Right.
That is the wonderful thing about Netflix in that way. You also worked with Redford on The Discovery. Tell us a little bit about that movie. And that's also on Netflix, right?
Right, that's also on Netflix. The Discovery is a science fiction movie where Redford plays a scientist who has proven that there is life after death, and that's the good news. The bad news is the unfortunate events that follow it, and it becomes a kind of unintended consequences follow his discovery.
Interesting.
And it's Rooney Mara and Jason Segel also is in that as well.
So you're working with Jason Segel a couple of times then.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, he's been in Carmel for a couple of weeks this summer. Everybody kept seeing him.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Yeah, he's a fabulous actor, and even taller than I am. So there you go.
I don't know. He apparently was very gracious.
I love Jason.
Yeah, he was very, very, very gracious. I kept hearing stories about him being in town and, having pictures taken.
Jason's always gracious. He's just one of these wonderful guys and wonderful people, and has become a good friend of mine. So he's just great.
It's nice when you can work with people that you like so much too. So we're going to get into, after these quick commercial breaks, we're going to get into American Chaos. You are listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM. Like the Jan Price Show on Facebook and check out thejanpriceshow.com. The Ozio Theater in downtown Monterey is now open every day, showing independent and foreign films. The Ozio Theater has new concession offerings, including beer, wine, hard cider, and their homemade Lush Slush. You can now schedule private event screenings for community charity events, birthdays, anniversaries, or just a fun gathering of friends. For more information, visit the Ozio Theater online at oziotheater.com.
Tired of looking at your worn wood floors? Mr. Sandless can bring them back to life again. That's right. It's Mr. Sandless, the no sanding solution to beautiful wood floors. Mr. Sandless is clean, efficient, contains no harmful chemicals, and is certified green. Mr. Sandless refinishes all hardwoods, softwoods, engineered flooring, and laminates. Most jobs are completed in one day with no cleanup required ever, with virtually no odor, and is safe for pets and kids. No need to move out or even leave the house. Mr. Sandless is the company that invented Sandless Refinishing and is the largest floor refinishing company in the world. Over 120,000 happy customers, guaranteed adhesion, guaranteed satisfaction, and a 5-year warranty. Call Mr. Sandless today at 831-747-7476. That's 747-7476. Or MrSandless.com. That's MrSandless.com.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1, streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is Academy Award-nominated director, writer, producer Jim Stern, and we're talking about his new documentary, American Chaos. All right, Jim, tell me how you decided to make this movie, American Chaos, and let's maybe we should tell the audience a little bit about what this movie is about, this documentary. It's wonderful.
Sure. In May of 2016, when Donald Trump had just gotten the requisite number of delegates to secure the Republican nomination, I went on the road and, over a series of several months, traveled to Trump states, red states, and interviewed people as to why they were going to support Donald Trump, why they were going to vote for him. Living in Los Angeles, I was increasingly aware that I was in my own echo chamber. My friends, the people that I knew, my brother who lives in D.C., also who was in politics, most people that I knew were actually in an odd way were glad that Trump had won the nomination, thinking that he was going to be a much easier candidate for Hillary Clinton to beat. As I watched television, and I watched with increasing sort of interest and, if not alarm, at the ferocity of his rallies and his speeches, I started thinking something very different. I started thinking that his core was so passionate and so ingrained that I thought that they could move mountains. And so I didn't know why they were so attracted to him. And I felt like we'd just come off of 8 years of, in my mind, of a president who had a 60% approval rating at the time. And while it didn't make sense, I thought that there was another story that wasn't being told. On cable television, all that was happening was that people were sort of shouting at each other, and no one was listening. And so I thought, how interesting to go around and listen to people and let them tell me in their own words why they were supporting this guy, as opposed to going and trying to trick them or making sort of snarky remarks about them and putting them into a uncomfortable situation. I just wanted to actually hear what they were thinking, and by doing so, I felt like I could develop a much greater understanding of what was happening in the electorate, be able to talk to my kids about this, and talk to myself about it, and my friends. And so that was the nature of what happened. And we went on the road first to Florida, which is, which has obviously a great tradition of political upheaval from the hanging chads on down, and it's also where Trump's second home is, Mar-a-Lago. So it starts in Florida, and then after that I go to the Republican Convention in Ohio. I go to West Virginia, Appalachia, to the coal mining areas, and then go to the border towns in Arizona, the Mexican Arizona borders, and then finally wind up back in Florida for the election itself.
And you interview, lots and lots of Trump supporters from all different economic backgrounds and various backgrounds in general. What was the most shocking thing that you came away with from interviewing these many people?
The most shocking thing, I think there's two. I would answer that in two ways. First is the intense hatred of Hillary Clinton. You know it, but you don't really know it till you're there. People hated her. They didn't really talk that much about Obama. They certainly didn't like Obama, but I think they gave him a free pass because he wasn't running anymore. But all of their venom was directed at Hillary, and I think that was sharper and more aggressive than I thought. The other issue, which I was ill-prepared for, was how much people believe their own facts. When I grew up, there were 3 networks, and there was public television, and everybody operated off of the same basic information. Now, you may have different interpretations of the information, but you operate on the same basic information, which you might interpret what Iran-Contra one way, and somebody else might interpret it another, and on and on and on. But you weren't talking about a completely different historical fact or occurrence. Today, what I found is that people were talking about things that were in such complete odds with what I knew to be true, or what I thought to be true, that I felt like once you believe that their truth is completely different than your truth, then it's a real slippery slope.
Well, I commend you in kind of being able to take a viewpoint that was not showing one way or the other how you felt about this. You straddled each side very well in the way that you interviewed all of these people. I'm sure it had to be difficult at times, holding back your belief system, I would think.
It was impossibly difficult to hold back. My brother was actually the special envoy in charge of climate change for Obama and was one of the architects, if not the architect, of the Paris Climate Accord. So when people tell me that climate change is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese, then it's obviously hard to hold back. And you sort of want to want to throttle them.
I know.
That said, the purpose of the movie was to let people talk in their own terms. I'm very interested in the comments that now I'm sort of getting back from the film, and some people are disappointed that I don't attack the people, and for me, what's interesting is I needed to put my subjects in a safe enough place so they could actually tell me what they were really thinking. And if they thought that I was just going to play gotcha with them or really fight them, they would have shut down. So it's a very conscious decision, and I think for my purposes and from the purposes of making this movie, it was absolutely the right decision.
I totally agree with you, because we have, we already have too many, when we do watch the news, which I try not to too much, the talking heads and everybody's disagreeing with everyone and yelling over each other, as you were saying earlier. I think we have enough of that. I think the way you approached this was in a much more open-minded way, and I think that's why this movie should be seen by everyone, whether you are a supporter of Trump or whether you were a supporter of Hillary. I think this film is one that is not divisive at all in any way, shape, or form, and that it's just a very open-minded way of looking and trying to understand how this all happened. I think, because I think everybody was shocked on many levels. I think the Trump supporters were as shocked as the Hillary supporters, to be honest with you.
Oh, they were. There's no question. Look, I don't think Trump thought he was going to win.
No.
The day of the election, David Plouffe says that that Hillary was going to win 340 electoral votes. He said that on an interview with Crooked Media. And Plouffe was the guy who was the campaign manager and the genius behind Obama's two election wins,
right.
And it was reputed to be the smartest guy out there. So I believed that Trump was going to win. Then I thought that Hillary was going to win. I go sort of up and down. What happens with me is that when I'm on the road, I absolutely think that Trump is going to win. When I come back home to L.A., I get sort of talked out of it, and I sort of think like, no, I must be overreacting. And it goes backwards and forwards. When you get back to L.A., people thought that I had Stockholm Syndrome, and I was just saying that Trump was going to win because I was where I was. But when I was out there and I saw how focused people were and how passionate they were, I absolutely thought that Trump was going to win.
I know it's still sort of flabbergasted about all of it, but interesting because of your being out in the field and talking, and they are just, no matter what, when he says that he could go out in the middle of the street and kill someone, and he would still get votes. I think that's becoming very more realistic. I mean, every day there's something new, and people are still supportive of what he's doing.
Absolutely. So. I'm quite certain that people also say, like, well, the people that you interviewed must not support him now. And again, that's still what that says to me is you're still in your echo chamber. If you look at what Donald Trump promised versus what he's either done or tried to do, he's probably been more faithful to his campaign than anybody in our memory. He wanted to, he said he was going to dramatically change immigration. He did. He said he was going to try and build a wall. He did try and build a wall. He said that he was going to deregulate the Environmental Protection Agency. He did it. He said he was going to change the Supreme Court. He's doing it. I mean, so from the perspective of the people who supported him, they're getting what they voted for. I mean, maybe they don't like, how he says things, but I think they give him a free pass for that.
I agree. I think they do. I know that prior to the election, I have many friends who I think are intelligent people who were very staunch Trump supporters, and we decided that we needed to preserve we need to preserve our friendship, so let's not talk about it. And so we haven't. And ironically, now I don't even want to ask them. Because I want to preserve the friendship, so we don't get into it. 2 years later, we don't ever mention the name. Yeah. So, we're going to take a quick commercial break. You are listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM, and like the Jan Price Show on Facebook, and check out thejanpriceshow.com.
The Century Theater at Northridge Mall is newly remodeled with luxury loungers in every auditorium. Oversized plush recliners are electric-powered reclining seats with extendable footrests, cup holders, and snack tables. Guaranteed comfort with all reserved seating. Reserve the best seat in town online at Cinemark.com or download the Cinemark app today. The Century Theater at Northridge Mall is newly remodeled.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1, streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is Academy Award-nominated director, writer, producer Jim Stern, and we're talking about his new documentary, American Chaos. So when you went down I think it was in Virginia, and you went down to the coal country, is that when one of the people you interviewed said that Hillary should be shot for treason? Was that where that took place?
That not only did the subject say that Hillary was guilty of treason, and the penalty for treason was the death penalty. What's not in the documentary is that before we started filming, he said, "Who are you going to vote for?" And it's a question which I thought that I quite nimbly ducked by saying, "If I tell you who I'm going to vote for, and I agree with you, and you agree with me, then you're going to feel over relaxed. And if I tell you who I'm going to vote for, and you don't agree with me, you're going to tune me out." So he agreed to that we wouldn't talk about until after the interview, and then he, told me that 99% of the people in West Virginia have guns, and that Hillary basically should be put to death. And then as I'm packing up to leave, he said, "Now you didn't tell me who you were voting for." And that was a moment where I looked at him and I said, "Well, when I came to West Virginia, I'm not going to lie, I was voting for Hillary Clinton, but since I've visited your great state, you've given me a lot to think about." And I just packed up and got in the car and tried to get out of there as fast as I could.
Good answer. Let me get out of here before they get their guns out and shoot me. I don't know.
Yes, exactly. Or they figure out what I've just said.
Yeah.
Just to say nothing.
I know. Very good of you to do that. So, what did you? I mean, you did. I love when you went to the convention, and I heard you did a little espionage at the convention. Talk a little bit about that. I thought at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland.
Well, I got to the convention, and I really felt that I could not make the movie without being in the convention, and our credentials fell through. So I was there with my cameraman and my sound, who was also doing sound, and there was no credentials. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Because I'm not going to. I mean, it's obviously going to be a gaping hole in the movie if I'm not there. So I frantically was making calls and twisting arms from the people who had originally told me they were going to get me into the convention. And so what they said was, they came back and said, "Okay, I'll tell you what, we can get you in, but it's just for 20 minutes, 2 hours before the convention starts." I'm thinking, well, that's not going to help me, but I'll take it. At least I can work from there. So I got in, and then after 20 minutes, they said, "Well, you have to give the credentials back and leave." And I said, "Well, here are the credentials back, but I'm not leaving." And they said, "Well, but you don't have credentials." I said, "You know what? When all those security guys with the roided out arms tell me I have to leave, I'll leave. But I'm not going to leave until then." So I was left there with the cameraman and my friend Kevin Ford, and then I walked over to a guy. I said, "Like, these seats, are these seats reserved?" He said, "Well, the section's reserved, but not the." I said, "But the seats aren't." He said, "No." I said, "Oh, that's interesting." So I said to Kevin, "Look, we're going to sit here. We'll sit here for the next 8 hours because no one's going to think those are their seats." Mm-hmm. And that's what we did, and no one bothered us. And Kevin had his camera, and we shot the whole thing, and I'm right across from Trump. And it was, and that's part of making a documentary. Sometimes you just got to, roll the dice and see what happens.
Guerrilla filming.
Yeah, that was guerrilla filming. That was guerrilla filming.
So what was that like, being there? Was that surreal for you?
It was surreal because you do feel like you're, undercover, because there's 20,000 chanting people for Donald Trump, and you're probably outside of the people who are clearly working for a network, and they're not sitting in the middle of the crowd like you are. You just feel like you feel like a spy. That's what you feel like, and that's what I did feel like. Everyone around me is chanting "Lock her up" and "Build a wall" and win, baby, win. All these sorts of things. And I'm, sort of nervous. You can see me in the movie. I'm sort of nervously looking around, and it's just trying to, to be somewhat inconspicuous. But it was. I've been in conventions, but I've never been in a convention where I wasn't in agreement with the candidate.
What was that like, though, sitting there when they are, saying "lock her up" and all of those? I mean, it was all about, all the being against Hillary. I did not feel in any way in jeopardy or anything. I just felt like this is a disaster. I felt like, this is. I mean, I walked out of there thinking that he was going to win for sure, and then again, I sort of got talked down. Said, "Oh, we just had Stockholm Syndrome again." But I mean, the intensity was so high, and even in the conventions I've been at, I thought the intensity of that room was the highest I'd ever seen. Wow.
And it was, you just feel like, slipping out of there, and you also feel like slipping out of there and going taking a shower somewhere for a long time and having a drink, maybe. But I mean, it's pretty daunting, but it's. but it was an experience for sure. I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I was on the wrong side of whatever situation like that I was in. I joke in the movie that it was like being at a Billy Joel concert where everybody was singing along but me, and that was that would be the very benign version of what this is.
Wow. Now, your brother Todd Stern, who is a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute, and he was also serving as the United States Special Envoy for Climate Change. What were his thoughts? I mean, because now look at what's happened to our, all of that too, all the work he did. What were his thoughts when you were talking to him about this as you were making the movie?
Well, Todd is a pragmatist and a real professional, and he was the staff secretary to President Clinton before Obama. So his view was he was looking at the numbers, he was looking at the data and the details, and he felt there was some cause for discomfort, but not nearly but he did not buy the discomfort that I was feeling. And at the end of the day, he would have been right had Comey not, thrown the big October Molotov cocktail that he did, and had Jill Stein not siphoned off votes, and it had Hillary, honestly run a better campaign.
Right.
So it's not that he was wrong, and it's not that I was right, but it just worked out that way, I think. But I mean, now he's still working diligently on climate change. I think, if anything, maybe harder than ever, because I think that he feels like he has to carry that message, and he goes to conferences and he speaks all the time, and he teaches, and he's at the Brookings Institute, and he's writing a book. So he continues to do the Lord's work.
That's good. We need people like that doing it. And you are doing it too,
yes,
with
absolutely.
this movie. You are, I think that's why I love film and documentaries. I focus mostly on independent film and documentaries on this show, to give a voice to these issues that need to have a place to talk about them in a little bit more detail.
Well, I completely agree with that. I mean, I think that if you have the opportunity to do something, whether it's this film or it's another film with about a different issue, if it's whatever that if you have the opportunity to do that, then you will be a richer person for taking advantage of that opportunity. I completely believe that. Whether it's doing a film like Spotlight or or some other issue film. I did a film called Freeheld, about gay rights in New Jersey, which was a very political film with Julianne Moore and Ellen Page. I mean, there's different ways that you can contribute to the conversation, and I think that we live in rare air sometimes, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to do a lot of things, and some things are very, very commercial, and they give me a little latitude to do things which I really deeply care about, which this movie is one of them.
When you set out to do this documentary, what were you thinking initially? What sparked this desire to put together this documentary, and what did you view it to be initially, and how did it change as you completed the movie?
Well, I think that I wanted to be able to demonstrate to my two kids, in part, that it's important to stand up and speak, and to be somebody who can articulate and interpret what's happening in the world, and in that way make a contribution, however small it may be. And I think that was a real driving point to me. Back in 2000 and whenever that was, when Bush was running against Gore, I had heard that there was several camera crews running down to Florida to do these documentaries on that, and as a result, because I heard that the market was flooded with other people, I did not go myself, and I always regretted that decision. I always said, if you have an opportunity, don't worry about what other people are doing, just worry about what you do yourself. And so that was in my mind. And when I saw this movement for Trump, and it really was a movement, that despite the fact that there had never been a candidate in our history who won the presidency who had not served in the military or held elective office, this was a sea change. And I thought, go down there and document it as best you can. And it was pretty guerrilla. I mean, I never intended originally to be the on-camera presence. What happened was really that I couldn't show both sides because we just didn't have it. We didn't have the resources to have an entire camera crew going around talking to Hillary people. So I became the juxtaposition point, mostly out of necessity, not out of forethought. But I definitely knew that there had to be a juxtaposition point. So I sort of volunteered to do it, and then people I trusted when they saw the footage said, you're good enough on camera, you're really good on camera, you can carry this, and so then I decided to continue on like that.
I was going to ask you how you became the focal point on this. How did it feel for you, not being a person who's normally in front of the camera?
So somewhat easier than I was. I mean, again, I came of age in the theater, so I was never an actor, but I was always, around acting my whole life. So, I did so many shows on Broadway and off Broadway before I ever got successful in film. So I'm not shy. I'm not camera shy, and I think that helped. I have an innate awareness of where the camera is, and so that's also probably helped in that regard too. But I liked it actually. I probably liked it too much, if anything.
You think you're going to do another one, Jim?
I don't know about that. The one that I'm doing now, I'm not on camera for, so that's
and what are you doing now?
Right now, I'm 2/3 of the way through a film about the great playwright August Wilson, who wrote Fences and many other great plays. Probably our greatest African-American playwright we've ever had. And there's a competition all over the country every year where high school youth perform his monologues. Most of them are untrained, and it's in 13 cities now. In Chicago, there are 400 kids alone who learn these monologues, and then they compete, and they are judged. And 100 turns into 60, turns into 20, and then at the end of it, there are 2 left standing. And in each city, there are 2 left standing, and those 24 or 26 are then flown to New York to compete on stage on Broadway at the August Wilson Theater on Broadway.
Wow!
So that's what the film is about, and it sort of looks at August Wilson's legacy through the eyes of today's youth.
I love it.
In a competition film.
I love it. It sounds like it's fascinating. Another interesting film. We're going to be right back after these brief messages. You are listening to The Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM. Like The Jan Price Show on Facebook and check out thejanpriceshow.com. The Ozio Theater in downtown Monterey is now open every day, showing independent and foreign films. The Ozio Theater has new concession offerings, including beer, wine, hard cider, and their homemade Lush Slush. You can now schedule private event screenings for community charity events, birthdays, anniversaries, or just a fun gathering of friends. For more information, visit the Ozio Theater online at oziotheater.com.
Tired of looking at your worn wood floors? Mr. Sandless can bring them back to life again. That's right. It's Mr. Sandless, the no sanding solution to beautiful wood floors. Mr. Sandless is clean, efficient, contains no harmful chemicals, and is certified green. Mr. Sandless refinishes all hardwoods, softwoods, engineered flooring, and laminates. Most jobs are completed in one day with no cleanup required ever, with virtually no odor, and is safe for pets and kids. No need to move out out or even leave the house. Mr. Sandless is the company that invented Sandless Refinishing and is the largest floor refinishing company in the world. Over 120,000 happy customers, guaranteed adhesion, guaranteed satisfaction, and a 5-year warranty. Call Mr. Sandless today at 831-747-7476. That's 747-7476. Or MrSandless.com. That's MrSandless.com.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is Academy Award-nominated director, writer, producer Jim Stern, and we're talking about his new documentary, American Chaos. Jim, one of the things, well, there are a lot of things. I loved the archival footage that you used in the beginning of the movie, showing the various campaigns going way back, as far back as we probably had film of many of these presidents.
Yep.
That was one part, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But the second one was the TV show. And I can't remember the name of it. What was the name of the TV show?
Trackdown.
What? Trackdown.
Trackdown.
I never heard of that movie, that TV show, Trackdown. And how did you find the clips from that?
The Trackdown clip was incredible, actually. It was just a fluke, really. My editor's, Rose's father, we were having dinner with everybody, and he said, I swear to God, there was a show in the 50s that talks about a con artist named Trump. And I said, that's impossible. He said, no, I swear to God I've seen this thing. And I just Googled 50s television, Trump, and it came right up.
Are you kidding me?
It took about 4 minutes to find. It was kind of crazy.
Oh my goodness!
And I watched it, and my eyes were just big as saucers. I said, "This can't be true." And in this 50s television show, this guy Trump is sort of like this kind of con artist, Wizard of Oz kind of guy, and it was a perfect analogy for the Donald. So we used it in the movie, but it was a complete fluke.
I mean, it's so perfect. It couldn't be more perfect. I think.
I know. It could not be more perfect. I mean, it's absolutely it's astonishing. Actually, I mean, just you can't believe it. So,
no, it was like a premonition.
All I can think actually is that it must have been written about his father. Because, Woody Guthrie had written a famous song famous at the time, I guess, called Daddy Trump, all about Fred Trump.
Oh, I didn't know
so
that.
I think that this must have had, because Fred Trump was just like his son. So, in real estate. And that's what, and Woody Guthrie's song is all about what a terrible guy he is. And so it would have been about the right time. So I think that somehow the writers must have known about Fred Trump.
Interesting. Very interesting. So the archival footage that you have in the beginning of the movie, tell us how did you find all of that too? Because I love how you did that.
That was much more premeditated. I wanted to bookend the movie with and demonstrate that the passions and the roiling emotions of presidential elections, it's been there since we can remember, and in fact we've come through a lot of bad presidents. I don't think anybody who quite captures this level of bad, but it's not like this is brand new. And so you see, when the movie starts, you see presidents all the way from Teddy Roosevelt to Trump himself. So there's a montage that goes all the way through, and then I bookend it somewhat backwards at the end of the movie as well. So, which again, sort of the idea being, we will get through this is sort of the underlying message.
Hopefully, if he doesn't destroy everything in the meantime.
Hopefully, right. hopefully right.
Let's hope. One can only hope. And so,
exactly.
I have so many more questions. First of all, I also want to talk about the music. I loved the music in this movie. So who was responsible for that? You had obviously.
Yeah, Vincent Jones wrote the score. He did a terrific job. He's very facile. He also can write in a lot of different styles, which I wanted. I wanted to have different musical styles represented by the different geographical places that we go. So it was really important that I had somebody who could do that. And then we just had, the songs were all, chosen from the various places that we were in, West Virginia to Arizona and Florida, etc. And then we got incredibly lucky that the lead singer from the National, Matt Berenger, saw a cut of the film, loved it, and was so taken with it that he offered to write an original song for the movie, which was amazing, and that's what the final segment is set to.
Oh, I know, and it is a great song. It really is. I thought that the music really enhanced the documentary quite a bit, but that song is fantastic. So, it was wonderful. So we take you now to the election night. Let's go to that. And what was that like for you when you went back to Florida?
That was a lot more, it was not completely dissimilar to being at the Republican convention, but a lot more emotional. Smaller, obviously, way, way smaller. But as I'm watching and hoping against hope that what I think is going to happen, when I see that it's going to happen, and I sort of had put myself into a state of kind of blissful ignorance until about 6 o'clock, thinking that Hillary was going to. After hearing David Plouffe say on the radio that Hillary was definitely going to win, I felt like I had overstated the case and that I had been wrong. So I relaxed and felt okay, and then I run into a woman named Joyce, who's a conservative radio host from Florida that I interviewed for the movie, and she was so serene and confident and analytical, and thinking that Trump was going to win. I thought, oh my goodness, she's right. And then you sort of see me getting progressively more and more upset as the evening wears on. In part, obviously, for my own sense of loss, but in part also, I get concerned about my brother's work on climate change, which I had spent 7.5 years on. So it starts to go down the same slippery slope that I think everybody felt who was on our side of the ledger when we watched the election.
And you were very good about really trying to control your emotions at the end of the movie.
Yeah. I was fighting a little bit of a losing battle, but but they were honest. That's the one thing I will say. They were honest about it.
Yes, yeah. Well, I was empathizing with you as I was watching it because I have never cried before over an election in my entire life.
Right, I know. And I had not either.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it with friends, and we were just in disbelief. And then when I drove home, I was just crying the whole way home. And then when I got home, and it was interesting, you go on, I don't know what possessed me to go on Facebook, but all of a sudden, Facebook is blowing up, and everyone is commiserating. People who you didn't even know felt the same way you were, from all over the world. It was just, that was kind of fascinating. And I just cried myself to sleep, and I thought, well, maybe I'll wake up tomorrow morning, and this was just a bad dream.
Yeah. I think a lot of people felt that way, and I can assure you that whether or not I cry again, at an election, it will certainly not be on camera. That's one thing I'll say. But no, it was. I mean, I remember seeing Kate McKinnon on Saturday Night Live singing Hallelujah.
Oh, I know.
And it was incredibly moving. This was about a week later, and it was just a cold open, and it was not funny, and it was just, in a certain weird way, I thought that captured a kind of moment or a zeitgeist more than anything that I saw. Was just watching her, this incredible comedian, brilliant comedian, singing the song, this cold open, and then that was it. And you couldn't even make a joke about it. It was too raw.
Right. No, that was brilliant. A really brilliant piece of work on SNL's part. It really was. And on Kate McKinnon, who I think I agree with you, she's absolutely brilliant. We're going to be right back after these brief messages. You are listening to The Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM. Like The Jan Price Show on Facebook and check out thejanpriceshow.com.
The Century Theater at Northridge Mall is newly remodeled with luxury loungers in every auditorium. Oversized plush recliners are electric-powered reclining seats with extendable footrests, cup holders, and snack tables. Guaranteed comfort with all reserved seating. Reserve the best seat in town online at Cinemark.com or download the Cinemark app today. The Century Theater at Northridge Mall is newly remodeled.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1, streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is Academy Award-nominated director, writer, producer Jim Stern, and we're talking about his brand new documentary, American Chaos. Jim, we only have a few more minutes, so I love your mother's comment. Do you want to say what she had to say?
Yeah, she's, my mom is now 95 and always has an incredibly positive viewpoint, and she's she had never seen anything in her lifetime as bad, and at the same time, she was urging sort of a more clear-eyed view and an optimistic view of that faces us. I think that it is important to remember that that politics goes in cycles, and that there's generally nobody stays in office for more than 8 years, which is how we got to Trump to begin with, in terms of one party or another. I think that one of the biggest issues facing us right now is trying to limit the damage, which is particularly, I think, difficult and frightening in terms of the climate, in terms of the Supreme Court, because those things are very long lasting. I think the most important thing anybody can do right now is get out and vote. And obviously, people in California, it's a very blue state, but make sure the people who are everywhere, not just in California, get out and vote. And if you can contribute to congressional campaigns, it's more important now than it ever has been in any of our lifetimes.
I agree. And, it's interesting. There's a whole big movement to make sure the millennials get out and vote this year. I think it's because this is, going to affect them even more so than others, obviously. And so there's a big movement. So what is the big takeaway from this movie? And what do you see the message might be?
I think it's really important to be empathic and to be a listener and to consider people who are on the other side. I mean, not necessarily someone saying they want to, shoot Hillary Clinton for treason, which is irrational, obviously, or if someone's saying that 1 out of every 8 people who votes in the country votes fraudulently and they're all voting for the Democrats, that's also, obviously absurd. But if someone's saying that they haven't worked in 2 years, and, that's a real thing. That's a real thing that deserves empathy. If someone's saying that, that people have been slipping over the border in the dead of night and traipsing across their property, that's frightening. I was shocked at that. It does not mean in any way, shape, or form that I agree or sympathize with their solutions. But I think that good can come from being able to at least understand in a way which is important in terms of helping us form ideas and programs and which can help unite the country in a way which I think it desperately needs. I mean, again, it's a tough time because people only are reading and listening to the facts that they want to read and listen to. But you have to break through that in some way, and just to simply tune out to it, I think is not a solution which I find viable as we go forward.
I couldn't agree with you more. So our time is up, Jim. It's been a wonderful, fascinating conversation with you, and I want to recommend that everyone please go see American Chaos. It's opening wide all over the country now, and so please go out and check out this wonderful documentary. Jim, thank you so much for being on the show. You've been a wonderful guest.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You have been listening to The Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM. Like The Jan Price Show on Facebook and check out thejanpriceshow.com.